The Entrepreneurship in Art episode that you're about to watch is unedited and uncut. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast platform for the edited version. Enjoy. We're live.
How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah. What is your shirt? Brian
Fallon.
Who is Brian Fallon?
Lead singer
Jimmy
of the
Fallon.
Gaslight
Jimmy
Anthem.
Fallon's lesser known brother.
No. Lead singer of the Gaslight Anthem.
You love
You heard of
them?
that? Well, they're from New Jersey. They're like Bruce Springsteen, but better. So yeah. I know.
You better be careful. I have learned the hard way that you don't want to say that. There are people out there who will literally fight you for saying something like that.
But to be fair, Bruce Springsteen's a huge fan of them as well. So, and they sound.
He's a fan of everybody. He's smart. He's just like, yeah. I'm not a huge Springsteen fan.
No.
I like Nebraska, and that's kind of it.
What don't you like about him?
It's just fucking bombastic, and it's just relentlessly bombastic. Like I love him as a human. I listen to his book, and I just think he's obviously an unassailable human. But his music, it's just relentless. And then when that guy Clarence Clemens or whatever, like he plays the saxophone the way people play a kazoo. Like he's not, he's like the big kazoo. It's not like, it's like he's just yelling into a saxophone while Springsteen is yelling into a microphone. It's just all yelling.
Not that we have many listeners, but I think that would have made a few of them turn off at that point.
Right, there goes half of our. Yeah.
It's one thing to say you don't like Bruce Springsteen, and it's another to be like, this is why. That's like when it's actually stinging.
Well, but don't you have to have a reason?
Yeah, you have to have a reason, but people don't want to know the reason. It's like why. It's if I like REM, but if I gave reasons why I didn't, you'd be like, no, those are all the reasons I love REM.
No, I'd be like, that's an objective, reasoned point of view. You're wrong, but that's an objective, reasoned point of view. I will tell you that Springsteen has informed one of my larger marketing theories that stood me in good stead, and it was actually the kind of precursor to the whole Mirror of Desire thing. He said many moons ago. He said, my secret and what all artists need to understand is that when you stand up on stage and look out into the crowd, you need to see yourself. And when the people standing out in the crowd look up on the stage, they need to see themselves. And I think that's right. And he's done that. And it's sort of remarkable, right? Like I said, he's an unassailably great human, right? Mm-hmm. But he, he's rich as fuck, right? And yet he still is able, when do you think the last time Bruce Springsteen got up at 7 a.m. to like get into a delivery truck, right? And yet he can write songs about that, and people that get up at 7 a.m. to do those types of work find him his hero. So like how he's managed to have that level of empathy for a sustained, 50-year career at this point, it's amazing.
I think that's why punk works so well too, because punk artists never had the kind of diva-esque or Freddie Mercury like huge personas. They were one of the people in the crowds.
Well, they were revolting against that, right?
Well, of the crowds at their shows, rather.
That's true. Yeah, they
were all part of
the community. There was a reciprocal thing. The whole the line between the audience and the stage in punk rock was really blurred. Mm-hmm. That's funny. I talk about that exact thing in the piece I just wrote for Forbes about the reciprocal relationship between fan and performer.
Let's get into it. You want to talk about it?
No, I'm talking too much. I'm caffeinated. You guys talk.
What have you been up to, Carly?
I'm under caffeinated. I'm warming up. I don't know. I've had a good, productive, active week. I don't know why, but I worked out like as if I think I'm an athlete yesterday. I'm super sore, a little bit tired today, but yeah, I've been good.
What's your go-to workout while in quarantine?
Yoga.
Sorry?
Yoga.
Yeah, but you love that app.
Yeah, I use an app called Aptiv, and it's really nice because they do like guided workouts. And I had it before all of this craziness, but since I've been kind of stuck at home, I'm using it like all the time. But I've been trying, yesterday marked the second week where I'm trying to run on Saturdays. I've run now 3 times probably in the last 5 years. I'm trying to make it more of a habit. I'm so bad at running, but it's been nice. It's kind of gray here today, but it's been nice. And I've been in this house for like months now. So I've hit that point where I'm like physically getting a bit antsy. But it's been good. What have you been up to?
It's been so rare. I was on such a great streak of going on bike rides. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling really good about myself. And then like a week and a half ago, I just stopped, and it's just rain. It's been raining. It's been muddy. I forced myself to do it yesterday, and I had mud all the way up the back of my shirt. But I stole a jacket from my dad for that bike ride, so that's on him now. I didn't bring one.
No explanation for it. Like he just puts his jacket on. I was like, why is my jacket covered in mud?
Right up the back, yeah. But that's I should be taking advantage of it as much as possible, because if I was still in New York, I wouldn't be able to leave my apartment, never mind the apartment building.
Exactly. I'm in the same boat, and I have all of this. There's a yard here, which is a thing that I've never had, mm-hmm. and I'm trying to take advantage. Although it's been weird. There was even a bit of snow this week, and then yesterday felt like summer. So it's still all over the place, but I am trying to exercise. Pardon?
I've been super into walking. Henry, my son, and I, we've been like, because during the first stage of the quarantine, like we couldn't, you know, we just like take a walk. I couldn't give him a hug. It was, you know, it was very surreal. But so we've got into this habit of walking. And yesterday we're walking through the little town of Marblehead, and we cut through this little, it's full of these little tiny streets that were, you know, made for cows or whatever, that have been paved over. And we're walking through the street, and some kind of, you know, like middle-aged, like older than I am, ancient, some woman kind of comes out of the house while we're walking through, and it like has like that like faux kind of smile, like when you can tell she's like, hi, excuse me, and I kind of like look over my shoulder, and she goes, this is a private world. I'm sorry. And I said, well, Karen, we're doing the best we can. And Henry was so proud of me, my 13-year-old, because it was such that kind of Karen moment. She was completely befuddled, but it was because I've been puzzling over the whole Karen thing, like, and you know, I'm sorry that the person, like all people named Karen, like now, you know, but like I'm George, right? And George was not the easiest name to grow up with, particularly when a little kid, because like you're always being accused of kissing the girls and making them cry. But no, this was like, you are literally Karen, right? Coming out of your house in a pandemic to like browbeat a dad and his son. Like we're like on her yard. We're in the, just want to let you know, this is a private way. Listen, Karen, you really call your manager, you know? It's like, oh gosh, it's astonishing to me the way people at this stage, like when we're all just doing the absolute best we can, this is what they choose to like use their bandwidth for. It's like, there's a guy and his son walking on the street. That can't stand. Let me go address this quickly. It's like, would you please just get back to baking motherfucking bread or something, Karen? Why?
So a stress-free trip then.
Yeah.
For me, like I'm just not gonna let. And then that was the whole like conversation of Henry and my perambulation, because he's sort of like a nervous. I don't want to say that he's actually a really chill kid, but like I think any kid, you know, right now it's just like, oh, what the fuck is going on? Can you imagine? Like if you're you know, it's like here's what's gonna happen when you're 14 or 13, and then you'll be 14. You know, you're not gonna go to school. You're not gonna be able to see any of your friends. All of your interaction is gonna be online. I mean, it's so surreal. So like, I mean, who knows what psychic kind of, you know, things are going on. So like, you know, and then just the psychosomatic kind of stuff, right? So he worries a little bit about just kind of generally, like if he's got like a mosquito bite, he'll be like, "Oh, Dad, what do you think this is?" I'm like, "I know what it is, a mosquito bite," And so I'm trying to be really sensitive to his stress and just like, dude, just talk to me about it. Like, just get it out of your head. Like it's like having that in your head. And so, just trying to keep him and everybody as I don't know, some level of lack of stress, but like you create it, Karen coming out of her house, rattling a pan at me. It's like, well, why are you creating that energy? Like,
was she actually rattling the pan?
No, but like, I mean, it's a metaphoric pan rattle. Like, I mean, like that's the best image I can do, like coming out like with a pan and a wooden spoon, get off of my yard. It's like,
but that is a more Karen depiction. What you're describing actually sounds like a woman who is pretty calm and nice about it, if I can play devil's advocate. And maybe you're the 10th person to walk in front of her house. She's also experiencing the same stresses of a pandemic. Private property is private property.
Yeah, but she should have just been like, "Oh, hi, hello. Would you like to come in and perhaps have a cocktail? Maybe a Negroni." Made the appropriate way.
That's not allowed.
The appropriate way, not the Stanley Tucci way. Also, okay, wait. I have a quick quiz. Without thinking, and absolutely no Googling. Name two movies that Stanley Tucci's been in.
Devil Wears Prada, and
Dan.
I've got nothing.
See, it's amazing.
Picture him.
Of course, everybody can. But
in a specific movie, he's wearing like a kind of tan suit.
Of course, you can picture it. He always looks the same.
No, it's an older one.
Mm-hmm. I want to throw this out to the universe. I think it's like that Berenstain Bears thing. Increasingly, I think Stanley Tucci's never been in any movies, and we've like collectively fictionalized him because he's blown up on the internet. Right, because he's now informing the internet on how to improperly make a Negroni.
That's not why he's blown up on the internet. That is absolutely, the Negroni has nothing to do with it. Stanley Tucci is a sex symbol for both men and women. He's one of the few people, but it's true. Gay men love him. Straight women love him. Straight men can appreciate his overall attractiveness.
And yet no one can name more than one movie that he's in. The only one that I could think of was Big Night, the cooking one.
I've never seen that. He also played Julia Child's husband, I think, in that movie.
Maybe. This is my point. Like, and sure, I think the guy's cool. I mean, I'm not, whatever. He seems like a handsome dude, whatever. But he does not know how to make a Negroni, and I'm not 100% sure he's been in any movies.
But we've named two that he's been in.
Maybe.
For sure.
Maybe.
Not maybe. The Berenstain Bears.
It's weird though, because he's so omnipresent. You're like, oh yeah, Stanley Tucci, star of countless movies and what? Don't you see? You're Googling. That's
I am Googling,
and then there'll be this range of it. But I throw this out to the world, name more than 2 Stanley Tucci movies off the top of your head. Nobody can do it.
Based on his,
but that's also not fair. That's like. That reminds me of Billy on the Street when he like goes up to people and he's like, name a woman, and people panic and can't name one single woman. You're putting us in a pressure tester.
No, I think it's like I actually sat when I was driving back from dropping Henry off, I sat and tried to go through my card catalog in my brain and the only one I could come up with was Big Night. I'm sure he's been like the uber bad villain in some Marvel movie or something that I've never seen, but like. Fuck and yeah, Devil Wears Prada. That's the best
Beethoven.
You can do.
He was in Beethoven. Remember that in 1992 class?
No.
I do.
The dog movie, or like the composer? Yeah. No,
he was in the Hunger Games apparently.
Not going to see that.
There you go. He was in Captain America. You nailed it.
Not going to see that.
Guy in a Marvel movie.
Some Star Wars movie, or some like superhero thing.
He was in Space Chimps. So
not going to see that. I don't know what Space Chimps is. But while you all are now realizing how correct I am, let me explain to the universe how to make a Negroni. It is not hard. It is one of the easiest and most satisfying cocktails to make, and he's screwing it up, right? It is gin, sweet vermouth, and Campari in equal measure. Put it into a cup with some ice, stir that, strain it into a new cup with an ice cube. Done, et voila. If you have an orange peel, great. You cannot swap out gin for vodka, it is no longer a Negroni. I'm not sure what that is. Not a Negroni. You absolutely must do it in equal measures. You should not double the amount of gin. It is perfect the way it is. And you can absolutely use the Martini and Rossi sweet vermouth. While you should never use Martini and Rossi dry vermouth in a actual martini, it is absolutely appropriate in a Negroni because it has the necessary kind of cloyiness that is balanced with the Campari. So there.
What about his vessel choice, the coupe?
No, wrong. And it needs to be, I mean, I do love
And
a
then
coupe. I
he
think
suggests the martini glass as the second option.
no, wrong. It needs to be over ice, right? It should not be straight up. Part of the joy of the Negroni is that the ice melts a little bit and dilutes it. And so you need, coupes are great. And I highly recommend the coupe for champagne more than a flute. Flutes are stupid.
Hot take.
I would rather do a wine glass or a coupe for champagne because like a flute is like, take something that's really great and then make it so that it's hard to drink and any of like the aroma or whatever just gets trapped. Doesn't make any sense.
I'm going to have to defend flutes as well. I do like champagne flutes.
Well, this all started with you defending Karen and me wanting, thinking that the appropriate response is...
We're going to be on opposite ends. Now, Karen, Stanley Tucci.
No, I like Stanley Tucci. I don't believe that he's ever been in a movie.
Did you actually watch the video of him doing it, though?
No.
Dan,
why in the world would I do that? Everybody sent it to me.
You have a lot to say about it.
Well, everybody, I feel as if I've watched it. Everybody's been, oh, George, because I love a Negroni, and I do appreciate the fact that he is popularizing one of the greater, if not the greatest cocktail. I do believe it is the quarantine cocktail. The official cocktail of the quarantine is the Negroni, but it must be made appropriately.
Why is it the official cocktail of the quarantine?
Because I say so. I mean, it's what else would it be? A pina colada?
Absolutely not.
Whiskey ginger for me. That's
a gin Ricky.
Solid choice.
What was it, Dan?
Whiskey ginger for me.
Oh,
I can just do
that's just ginger ale and whiskey.
And a little bit of
now, why is that not a Moscow Mule? Oh no, there'd be vodka. So what ginger ale and whiskey, is there a name for that?
Whiskey ginger.
Jack and ginger, right? Jack and ginger.
If I go to a bar and I say whiskey ginger, they know what you mean. What I'm looking for. Yeah. Yes, and a little bit of bitters. A little bit of bitters.
Oh, okay. So that makes it a cocktail. I would never drink that.
I would.
I could just drink those for hours. Yeah. And I
you should do that and then do a podcast. I would drink a dark and stormy though. And that has, ginger beer in it.
Yeah. See, I'm not sophisticated, nor do I with my alcohol.
Care.
Yeah.
Nor do you what?
Nor do I feel the need to be. I like, if I know what I like, I can do whiskey ginger or Jack and Coke or
you're Bruce Springsteen. Or you're a typical Bruce Springsteen fan. How do you feel about like beer?
I don't drink much beer.
Right. Well, that's the right answer.
I kind of stick to whiskey drinks and wine if I don't want whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Usually out of a box.
Box for real? Yeah.
We have to change that, Dan. All right. So all right. Writing. What? I mean, again, like I'm caffeinated. I'm on a thing with my writing. I'm feeling good about it. I published another Forbes piece, but I'd like to hear what you all are writing about before I prattle on about what I'm writing about. What?
Take it away, Dan.
I do have a piece I'm working on, but I'm not ready to talk about it. I've had a thesis for a while, and I finally found
or something.
Well, it does no good to talk about it on the podcast before there's somewhere to send people to.
That's true. Okay. Yeah.
But I've finally found. I've had a thesis for a while. I've finally found case studies for it because it would take me too long to come up with my own case study. And now I'm putting that together, and I think I like the way you did your recent 2 articles for Forbes, where you basically laid out the thesis and the case study in one article and did a follow-up interviewing the people responsible for it.
The 1-2 punch.
Yeah, and take my hand at that. But what about you, Carly?
I wrote one piece last week about, it's not as interesting as George's, so I guess it's a good little, can get to the good stuff soon, about persona-driven marketing, which for me, as someone that's worked in marketing for the last decade plus, I think is a super underutilized tactic. In fact, most people just don't even consider it. And I think it's, George is actually the one that shared that Bill Evans quote with me, which I begin the article with, which I think is a really nice way of kind of summarizing the importance or the impact it can have. I don't want to say the whole quote because it's kind of long, but it's essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me, George, Bill Evans, and any Bill Evans fan, but he essentially says like certain people, he says about 15%, I'm not sure where that number comes from, maybe 15% of people want to experience something deeper. They want to participate. They want to kind of be a part of something bigger, to discover something new. And those 15 people, I think, can also just be seen as kind of your mavens, your early adopters. And to get to those people, persona-driven marketing can be kind of a fun task, an interesting way to try to get in front of those people. So for anyone that's not familiar, a persona is what I just said. It's like a fictional depiction of who you think your kind of early adopters or mavens will be. And you know better than anyone else, whether you're an artist or a company or a store or whatever business you may be, you know who you think or hope to reach. Doesn't necessarily that mean that that's who you're reaching, but by kind of laying out your ideal customers in a way, the people that you really hope will respond to you, the people that you would like to be interacting with, if you actually kind of sketch them out and make real people, again, they're fictional people, but if you give them a name and a job and a location and interest, and you think about, are they an iPhone or an Android user, and what kind of car do they drive, and what did they study, and how do they vacation, you can build a really kind of comprehensive view of this person. And in that, there's all kinds of different tactics. It can change the messaging you use, the platforms that you use. It can change the entire content that you kind of try to reach these people with. So ideally, it should be a mix of what you think your ideal customer base is, or fan base, or the early adopters, or whatever, with some research too, of course. So either if you've ever run a social media campaign, you can look at who interacted with it, or where, or how old they were. If you track website analytics, you can use that as your research. So there should be some actual quantitative research that you're using here too. You can just talk to other people, like talk to your friends. You could put out surveys. You can do all kinds of stuff to get that kind of stuff. And so I gave a couple of examples just to kind of show what it looks like, that are real examples, just a couple from a selection of 10 that I use in the piece as well, to show people what it can look like at the end as an example. I mean, you can get as in-depth as you want or not. So the piece is about kind of how to do that, and the goal or the overall like benefits that you can achieve with that kind of marketing. And again, it's something that I think is really, really underutilized.
Why do you think that is?
I think it can be hard for, in my experience, it's been one of those things where it doesn't always feel like a top level priority, like kind of inventing people and doing this whole like sociographic kind of depiction of a potentially just, I don't know, like they're not real people. But I think that maybe it's hard to feel like it's a more tangible task, or maybe it feels like too big of a task to just kind of dive into it. I think even places where maybe it's been in my presence discussed or talked about, it's very rarely executed on, or personas are built and then nothing is ever done with them, is also common, I think. But I don't actually know why. I mean, you can people just guess anyways with their digital marketing. I mean, you create your own kind of audience personas when you do a Facebook campaign. You say the age groups, that you certain demographic elements of the people you want to reach, but you can take that further. And like I said, I think actually it can be kind of a fun exercise. It can make you also feel closer to the people that you're trying to reach out to. You're trying to get to know them better. And then, as with any digital marketing, you just test it. You see if it's working. You see which personas are working. You maybe let go of the ones that don't seem to have much of a response, or the most impressive numbers, or you build new ones, or you build out, as your product or art develops, you can build out the personas more too. I think it should be just a kind of ongoing thing that's running within your marketing. So it can help test your theories. You can play with it a little bit. I mean, I think a lot of people also are sometimes reluctant to do real trial and error stuff with their marketing. If they feel like it's going to be a flop, then it failed and then they shouldn't do it again. But your failures can be just as kind of enlightening as your successes. It's the process of elimination. So for me, I think that it's a beneficial thing for anyone to incorporate. Anyone that does digital marketing, I think, should at least consider their personas. Again, whatever they want to call it, your early adopters, your mavens, you're like, you laid out the fans also in your musician's handbook guide, like the active fans, the passive fans. Yeah. It's the same kind of concept too. Or if you want to use like pure marketing speak, it's your qualified leads, so you can put a different name on it, a different hat on it, but it's kind of painting that picture a bit more.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great article.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love it too. And it's the way I always look at it is that in any total addressable market, and this is what Bill Evans is talking about, may he rest in peace. But there's what I call the most passionate percentage, right? So you might have 1,000 people in your area who like what you do. So I'm going to open a banjo store or whatever in Boston, and I'm not. I'm like, well, the total addressable market for banjo players in Boston is maybe 5,000 people, whatever. But of that 5,000, the most passionate percentage is maybe 10% or whatever, right? So 500 people are the ones that are actually reading banjo blogs, that actually, in times of non-quarantine, go into banjo stores and ask around or whatever. And those people, they are actually the only ones that are impacted by marketing. The other 90, 85% of people are what's known as early majority or majority. They become aware of a product or a service through word of mouth, right? The marketing is not effective on them, right? They're not predisposed to go out and hunt for things. They wait for someone else. So, like Carly's piece lays out, thinking it through in terms of personas. And I will tell you, like, so when Henry and I were laughing about like my son trying to define like, well, what is a Karen, right? And so he sends me this TikTok, and it's this guy talking to himself, so like a split screen thing, and he's like, well, I'm applying to be a Karen. And the guy says, well, what are your qualifications? And he says, well, if I order a burger at a restaurant and it comes with a tomato on it, and I have and I said no tomato, or hold the tomato, my first response is to ask them to take it back, talk to the manager, and request that our entire meal is on the house. Right? Like, that's a persona. Like, so Karen is a persona. And when I did marketing for CVS, like, we would 100% like think about those types of people and give them names, right? And so you fit them into the demographic. Well, they're this age and this gender or whatever. You fit them into the geographic, they live here or the other. But then it's the psychographic thing. It's like they are the ones that like will immediately ask to speak to the manager. Not everybody does it. And so, those are putting it into those names and making it tangible, just as Carla lays out, is really, really important. But it is, I mean, the Karen thing is a persona. And so like if you're kind of looking for a real world sort of heuristic or whatever, like that's it. All companies need to kind of find their Karens and give them names.
Well, I mean, a Karen is a persona, but I don't think it's someone you want to include in your like marketing strategy.
Sure, because you got to deal with them. Like those are like you 100% have to, like, as a company, be like, there is going to be that customer that you can't satisfy, that's going to drive you fucking crazy, and you need to fire her. Right.
But that's not the point of this at all. I mean, this is about how to reach people you want to reach, not how to deal with the people who aren't the people you want to be interested.
Sure, still a persona, but yes, I get your point.
Well, that's interesting. Customer service oriented personas.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that you can't, like, everyone's like in marketing people, I was talking about how the customer is always right. No, they're not. The customer is frequently wrong. And if you run your business with this bias that the customer is always right and we need to super serve them and give them whatever they want, you will fail quickly, because you will go off of your mission. You will end up super serving these customers who are not repeat customers, who have no loyalty, and you'll forget about the actual customers that can add value. So you need to fire customers.
And people can read the article on entrepreneurshipandart.com or Carly's Twitter or Medium.
Yeah.
No, go to the website. That's where all the stuff lives.
And it's, again, I like it so much because it's so prescriptive. It's so like, here's just like, Dan, like your book is like, here are some examples. Here are some things. And that's what I was trying to do, because it was sort of like a think piece, the Forbes piece about kind of job to be done. And then I was like, well, why don't I just talk to these people? So I talked to the guy that runs, Rhino Records, who puts out all the dead shit. And, it's interesting. I think this goes to your point too, Carly. It's like people kind of do this, or Dan asking why they don't do it. And what I've found is that, first off, like, everybody thinks just innately that they're a marketer. Like, they just kind of come out of the womb and they're like, well, I know how to market. It's like, no, you don't. Right. And there is a science, but there's no test. It's not like you have to take the bar or whatever the doctor test is, or, whatever. It's just like, you just call yourself a marketer. Right. And it's sort of offensive to people that like who are practitioners in it, or people that go to school for it. I mean, you can get a PhD in marketing, right? And I know MBAs are constantly shit on, and perhaps justifiably so, but there is a real kind of discipline around it. And it's annoying to just have people who like have zero qualification, have never done it, be like, well, I know how to do a marketing campaign. No, you don't. And so putting some kind of science behind it. But anyway, so talking to Dude, I was like, well, what led to this gesture? His name's Mark Pincus, by the way. I should just refer to him as Dude. He's a very successful, accomplished, music industry professional. And he said, well, we put on our fans' hat, right? And with the dead, like we just, and that's kind of what you're saying, Carly, in terms of like getting into the mindset of the customer. And that's product market fit. And yet, so many businesses don't do that. So many people, they don't, it's crazy. They don't think, okay, well, I need to think about this from the customer perspective. And when you do, it changes everything. And so, like, for me, I've been wrestling all week on why, and I do love me some Willie Nelson, but I thought that 420 thing that he did was kind of bad. And it was interesting that it was on Twitch. But it just, and then I think the Dead thing, the Shakedown series is kind of great. And there are a couple of reasons why I think it's one, the Shakedown series is at a time and date certain. Every Friday at 8:00, it's going to happen. And like in this time where there's all this, like, I don't know when this is going to end. I don't know when I'm going to be able to leave the house. I don't know when, the checks from the government are going to, come. I don't know when Trump is going to literally explode on camera, right? Like, you don't know any of these things that are going to happen. It's nice to know that, oh, man, I plowed through another week. It's Friday at 8, and this is a thing that's going to happen. So like in an era where everything can be on demand at all times, having to kind of wait for something and look forward to it, super counterintuitive, right? Like the marketplace, like, no, give customers what they want all the time. And yeah, kind of, but doesn't that devalue it a bit? There's no anticipation. There's no kind of scheduling. But the other thing I was thinking about, and it came through when I was writing, like at the last moment, which is why I love writing. I never would have cooked this up unless I had written it, was I think that it also works because it's just, 3 hours of the dead plane without any of that annoying, like stopping in the middle. Hey, everyone, we all need to pull together during these times and, reach in your pocket and donate to your frontline workers. It's like, no shit, right? Like, I don't need some celebrity reminding me that we're in crisis, right? Like, I'm getting that constantly. So like even with the Willie thing, they would break, and then they'd kind of laconically talk about how we need to do. And it's like, yes, I know. The whole point of this is I don't want to think about that right now. And that's not to say that the dead aren't raising money for this, but they're doing it in a way that's not patronizing, that's not like distracting. It actually allows you to kind of take a breather from this, and so that's a different job to be done. And yet all the other ones, like they constantly, who needs to be reminded right now that we're in the coronavirus and we need to have to give things? It's insane to me. So I think that's another reason why this works really well. But that comes from putting on the fan's hat and not thinking, I need to go out there and be this like, spokesperson. It's like, no, you don't,
I'm not familiar with the Willie thing. Can you explain what that was?
Well, he does a party on April 24, 20 every year. And, typically it's out on his ranch in Texas or wherever, and he does his thing. And this year they did the show, virtually, obviously. And so he and one of his kids sat at the ranch, and then they would just sort of go, okay, here's Margot Price in her living room playing a thing. And here's Jeff Bridges doing a song, whatever. And again, great, no, nothing but love, right? But it just, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everyone in the world loved it except for me. But interspersed in that was the kind of like pedantic lecturing from these celebrities, which I'm not that I was ever into it. I'm super over it at this point. I'm super over like some celebrity telling me how I need to act and operate in this time. Don't need it. Don't want it. And so the Willie thing was cool because, you see these people kind of in their living rooms or whatever, and it was cool. It was on Twitch, which you wouldn't think of it, think of Willie using essentially a video game platform, and it allowed for there to be the sort of side scroll of comments, but it just, it didn't have, it was that skeuomorphic thing. It didn't have any of the magic that you would have by going to see, Willie at the ranch or whatever. Whereas for me, and this is so personalized, but I think that the in talking to the Rhino guy, like it's growing. The people watching Shakedown series is growing each week. And I was like, well, there's your net promoter score. People are telling people. And for me, that does have a certain kind of magic because they're not trying to shoehorn it in. It's just like, here's a great dead show, and it's a difference.
I think it's cool though that I don't want to focus on Willie, but it is cool that he did it on Twitch because that's exactly one of the suggestions that Dan had given in his piece.
Yep.
Utilize different platforms. And now it's been proven how effective that can be. And it makes complete sense. I think that's a kind of cool outcome.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of it.
I wonder if he missed out on some of his audience, though, because he's definitely got audience members, fans that would never download or log into Twitch to watch it.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But isn't now the time to try those things? I mean, that's
absolutely. That's
the thing I'm pushing on, clients and everyone's like, I don't know. Cause like, aside from jackasses like me who will criticize you, like for the most part, people are pretty forgiving during this time, right? It's try some things, try different things. And the fact that, undoubtedly the average Willie, I don't know what the average Willie fan is, but some percentage of the Willie fans are like, what's Twitch? And some percentage of Twitch people are like, why is this not a Fortnite stream? So, but it's cool,
Do they have a timeline for the Shakedown series? Or are they just going to be doing it like? Is it like a 6-week thing or?
They originally said 6 weeks, and I'm sworn to secrecy, but it may go longer than that. And I am allowed to say that there are some really, really phenomenal, because they do a pregame thing in advance, so it starts at 8, and then they have like
time.
Yes, thanks. 8 Eastern time, and then they have kind of guests, and like Bill Walton was on one, and they've got some, I can't say who, but they've got some really cool upcoming guests. So they may go longer. I don't know. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, but we do know that for however long it goes, it will be Friday at 8 p.m. It will be some badass Dead show. And if you're not a Dead fan, you're not going to like it. Don't tune in. Like you will not like it. But if you are, it's perfect. I mean, that's a persona, right? Like, I mean, you if you're a brand, and we represent, GHS represents helps a weed company, like having a you can persona out, right, a customer to a certain degree on like who the early adapters are and all these types of markets. But the Dead is a really nice kind of psychographic profile. Someone that would go to a Dead show, you can kind of extrapolate out other things that person might or might not be into.
They probably own tie-dye merchandise.
Pardon?
They probably own tie-dye merchandise.
You probably.
Tie-dye clothing.
I don't. I hate tie-dye. I mean, for so long, I hated, quote unquote, hated the Dead because of all that, because of all the knuckleheads that the music eventually, kind of wore me down, and now I just love them so much.
Well, do you want to jump to
Dan?
Sorry?
Have you tuned in to either of them? Or?
I have not. Yeah, no, I never got into the Grateful Dead, although I've loved a lot of bands that have covered their music. The Dead themselves have never clicked.
I mean, you're a guitar player, and I when I was your age, you couldn't have paid me to listen to the Dead, but like I'd be interested with you as a guitar player. I could probably point you to some solos and things because I don't understand why Jerry isn't thought of more highly outside of kind of the Dead circle as a great guitar player. I mean, to me, some of his solos are at a level of like a Coltrane solo or something. Like they're just out of control, But yeah, there's so much of the ephemera around the Dead that it can be really, really tricky to kind of break through that and get to the music. So your point, I think I'm kind of the same way. It's like it was probably Bob or someone or who knows, someone doing a Dead song. I was like, wow, that's actually a pretty good song, and then kind of going from there. And this most recent show, they did just like Tom Some Blues and When I Paint My Masterpiece back to back. So it's like, I mean, for me, it's amazing.
It's also a generational thing, right? I mean, the bands that are big with my peers right now are like Fish and Humphreys McGee and
Lettuce. They're touring. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that adds a level of real time excitement, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I was talking to my students about just talking about like records they're listening to during the quarantine. No shit. And these are people now who were born in 2000, right? So let that rattle around your brains for a while, right? And they're like, mostly a lot of Fleetwood Mac. I was like, what? I listened to Fleetwood Mac when I was 5, and then, I've been listening to a lot of Zeppelin. It's like, okay, but it's, and admittedly, these are Berkeley students, but, and then I kind of threw it back at them. I was like, well, who will be the artist that your kids or your grandkids from this generation will listen to? And they were just like at a just lost for words. They couldn't come up with anything. And so I think it will be Fiona Apple.
Oh, I'm obsessed with that album right now. I've listened
to
it all day.
So great.
When I listen to it, I often just listen to it all over again once it ends.
Yeah. It's an album. Like it works in that, like it's a piece. Like it's just so great. I have a whole theory on that too.
It gets better and better every time you listen to it, though.
As great art does.
Different. You hear something in the background. I love all of the background stuff. There's just life behind it, which you don't see often. Like there's
Dogs.
and I think it was her sister who provides vocals in some of them. It's like breastfeeding when she was doing her stuff, and it's cool. I'm obsessed with it right now.
Totally, deservedly so. I think it's her, and she says it in one of the lyrics about like finding her voice, or like, and anybody knows her history, like she has been, deeply kind of, I don't want to say the word controlled, but whatever, this one. And so like I equate this record to it's like her Swordfish Trombones or something, where Tom Waits was kind of pushed to be like balladier guy, and then he's like, no, fuck it, I'm gonna make the record that I want to make. And just like Fiona's album, it's like on Swordfish, like you just hear kind of, like you said, life around him. It's just racket and kind of stuff going on. And then the other one, I think, and this came from watching, which I thought was excellent, Henry was not as impressed as I was, but the Beastie Boys documentary movie came out on Apple Friday, whatever, we watched it yesterday, and they talk about that transition from License to Ill, which was really kind of Rick Rubin's record, and I would always say it was Paul's Boutique. They think it's more Check Your Head, which makes sense, where at that point they're like, fuck it, we're just going to make the record we want to make, and kind of found their voice. And if you think about it, that's right, because Paul's Boutique is kind of a Matt Dyke Dust Brothers record, whereas Check Your Head is like, no, them just doing it. And so like that's what this Fiona Apple record sounds like. It's Swordfish Trombones, it's the Beastie. So I'm on this like this brain rant, like trying to figure out other records like that, because it goes precisely to the purpose, not product thing, precisely to that moment where you start with like excitement. Hey, we're going to be a great band. And you end up sounding like somebody else. It doesn't work. And then you finally go, you kind of decouple, you unshackle, like, we're just going to make what we want to make. And like Frank Sinatra, the early Frank Sinatra records, just sound like Ben Crosby, right? And he's like, it's going to be me, So like, I'd love to like compile a list. I mean, you see that with visual artists too. Like if you look at early Picasso, whatever, like he's just trying to paint like whoever. And then it's like, no, I think I'll just paint like what I want to paint. And it's an interesting trajectory. Like, why does it take so long for people to kind of find that voice? What's that process through, kind of imitating others or being controlled or manipulated by others to finally just going, screw it. And the through line seems to be, I got nothing left to lose. That's just going to. Yeah, Van Gogh, 100%. Yes. But I want more examples of that record, like that. Like we've made these couple records, and not to say they're bad, but it wasn't really me. Here's the record that I became me. And I think this is Fiona Apple's record for sure.
I don't think that. I mean, her earlier stuff, and she often has big gaps in between albums as well. I think that this sounds like Fiona Apple. Like, I think what you're saying is that the sound was different, and they felt like her whole, like, and you can interpret it in a lot of ways. And I've been like listening to it nonstop. And so I've listened to it in a few different ways, but I don't think that it's as much about that. I think that this album is as much about the time that we're living in and her as an artist and where she feels her art is. It's very much a response to the state.
And you probably noticed, and I don't, like, who produced this record? Like, this wasn't John Bryan. This wasn't whoever who's done it.
I don't know. I know it was recorded in her home, though. I don't know.
And that's, yeah, because like with and again, maybe this is me just trying to tie a neat little bow around something. Like with the Beastie Boys, with Check Your Head, they're like, yeah, we're producing it. With Swordfish Trombones, Tom's like, yeah, me and my wife Kathleen Brennan are producing it. Everybody else stay the fuck away. And I bet, I'm just guessing here, and I'd love to be proven wrong, I bet this is the first one that Fiona was like, no, I'll make this one. But I could be totally wrong. It sounds like it to me.
I think, well, she's listed as a producer along with Amy Eileen Wood, Sebastian Steinberg, and David Garza. But I don't know who those people are.
So I know David Garza is, but other.
Isn't he in the band actually, David?
I think he was in like Los Lobos or something. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. I don't know the others.
But I don't know. For me, I think I hear what you're saying, and I think that there's a lot of value. I don't know if Fiona Apple fits as nicely into that kind of category. So
it's the way my brain works. I always like to put little, but I like having them pulled apart too. And I think it's an interesting. There are examples of. I mean, the Beasties go. They just say it, and Tom Waits just says it. Fiona Apple does sing it, but you're right. Like, I mean, this is me just kind of putting a bow around it. But you see it in all sorts of art and books. I mean, like my favorite thing is what's his name, Mark Twain, like writing half of Huck Finn, which is essentially like a sequel to Tom Sawyer. It's nice and it's whatever. And then he got stuck, and he couldn't, when they're on the raft and he didn't know where to go. He put the book down for a year, came back, blows the raft up, and the second half of Huck Finn is like the most amazing piece of art and literature, you know, and it's completely different from the first half. And something happened. Like, someone should write the book about like what happened to Mark Twain in that time between the first and the second half of Huck Finn, because that's when the voice came out, and the book changes completely from this like pastoral kind of nice little story to like revolutionary. I like this one.
Should we talk about our three things?
Yeah, I got so many things.
Okay.
Go.
I can go. Alex Deason.
Who's that?
He is probably my favorite songwriter of all time.
Alex Deason?
Yeah, and he was the lead singer of my favorite band of all time.
Gaslight Anthem?
The Damn Wells.
You love the Damn Wells.
I fucking love the Damn Wells.
Love the Damn Wells.
And
you need to make a playlist. We need a Spotify playlist.
I was going to bring that up.
Or not Spotify. I want it to be a Mood Agent playlist, but unfortunately you can't get that in the United States at this point. But we need a playlist.
Yes, we should have our quarantine playlist that we add to every week. But so Alex has been doing. He hasn't put out a Damn Wells record in years. He hasn't put out a solo record in about 3 years. But while he's been in quarantine, he's been writing and recording music, and he's been putting out a new song every week for the past 3 weeks. And this last week, it was Friday when he released one. That was the first time I got like really emotional with a new song coming out. And he posted about it on Friday, and I commented on his Instagram post, and I was like, dude, is there anything we can do as your fans to support you? Buy merch, buy on Bandcamp? And his response was, nope, just enjoy it. And
nice.
that actually made me angry, because, and this is what I'm talking about, where fans have emotional ownership. It's, I want to feel a part of this somehow. Let me buy your shirt. Let me join your Patreon, do something so that I can.
So rattle his cage. Go back to him and be like, no, like talk to him, but have him come onto this podcast. Yeah. We'll knock some sense into his damn well head.
He's definitely an artist. Kind of, he was screwed by Sony, and that's kind of screwed the Damn Wells. And so I've watched his career for quite a while now. He's definitely one of those guys that is like, the commercial side of music just frustrates him and kind of pisses him off, which is ironic because now he runs a record label. But
there you go.
Yeah, it was just interesting. And it wasn't until this song came out, and they're all kind of like, they sound like late 2000s, just like there's nothing new about them. They're just fun songs. And he's got a master's in English, so he's kind of got an interesting background, interesting brain. But yeah, that
it's a mirror of desire, brother.
Yeah. See what else? I'm reading. I do this all the time, and it's not a good habit. I'm reading 2 books at once. So I guess one is an audio book, one is an actual book. I mentioned them last week. Range, which is by David Epstein, which is about why generalists and people that end up changing careers later in life actually end up being more successful and happier. And then the No Filter book, the book about Instagram's history. And there's a lot of overlap. And so one thing that I thought was really interesting in Range, which will resonate with you, Carly, the author compared Nobel Prize-winning scientists to other scientists. This is a study that was from Michigan State University. And they found that Nobel laureates are 22 times more likely to be an amateur actor, magician, dancer, or performer than non-Nobel Prize-winning scientists.
What?
A magician?
In all fields?
Scientists specifically. So, yeah.
Interesting.
I'd have to pull that out. But
correlation without causation.
Maybe, but it made me think about Kevin Systrom and Instagram, right? Where part of what makes him so unique is he wasn't a computer science specialist. He had studied a bit of it, but he also took a 3-month photo trip to Italy where he only used a plastic camera that took black and white photos. He also had a business management degree. He worked for Google and then a startup and all these other companies rather than going straight into building Facebook. He interned for Twitter. So people with diverse background, Van Gogh is an example as well. Van Gogh failed as an artist, tried all different types of art until he eventually came up with what became his style and is now worth insane amounts of money. So it's interesting 2 books to read together, and I recommend both of them. The last thing I have here is the Creator Games. Did anyone watch that yesterday?
No.
By Mr. Beast.
Whoa.
So it was 32 creators, so YouTubers, video game streamers, lots of big names, and it was a March Madness style rock, paper, scissors competition, live on YouTube for a charity benefiting the WHO. And they had some people that I like. I watch tech reviewers like Marquise Brownlee, iJustine, or Casey Neistat, who's a video maker. They also had Ninja, KSI.
The influencers, or the YouTuber. Ninja, the Fortnite. I know him from Henry.
Yeah. I mean, the guy that founded 100 Thieves, Nadeshot, who ended up winning. It went on for way too long, but it was so fascinating to watch this March Madness style rock, paper, scissors competition with all these personalities. And Mr. Beast said they raised $1 million. I looked right before this, and they're up to $4 million in donations, with Google doing a 2-to-1 match up to $5 million. So that's a shit ton of money. But it was so interesting. And I've watched a few things like this where it is random personalities. My favorite podcast, Reply All, did a few things like this where
Carly
they got their friends together and they played a game over Zoom. They called it Wolves or something like that. And it's fun to see that type of interaction among these different personalities. It kind of feels like you're a fly on the wall. But it's a fun, new, engaging way for someone like me that will never watch video game streams, but would watch things like that where personalities come out.
Nothing about it. I'm excited to look at it.
Cool. What about you, Carly?
I've actually mentioned 2 of them already, but I'm super into, I don't know, like I said, I feel like a total imposter, but I'm pretending like I am an athlete. But the exercise has been it's completely changed my state of mind. And it's only been, it was my second run yesterday, but it's not been very long since I've been trying to make this a real habit. And it's completely changed my state of mind during all of this in a really big way. The Fiona Apple album, which I would have mentioned at great length had we not already discussed it, but has been, I don't know, it's been making me think, it's been making me feel things. It's been like a therapeutic album to listen to, which I think a lot of people are experiencing similar things. And then another thing that I loved this last week, Cindy Gallop, who is one of my icons. She is the founder of a company called Make Love Not Porn, and it is a sex tech company just based on the premise that porn is not made for women and it's not real. And it is often the first kind of exposure to sex that young people have. And it's not a fair representation. And so Make Love Not Porn is actually just real people having sex. You can submit your videos as a user as well. But her whole kind of platform and the idea behind it, I heard her speak at a conference in Berlin, I think it was 2015. And I've thought about her on a regular basis since hearing her. She's one of the most inspirational speakers I've ever heard. She had a super popular TED Talk when that was a big thing. I think it was probably a while ago now. But so I follow her and I follow her company, but she's also just this really huge champion for female empowerment and just kind of females in the workplace. And she's done a lot of stuff about just fair gender pay. And in fact, I can't remember who did it with her, but there was at one point this Cindy Gallop bot that you could speak to. And she cusses a lot. She has a short, bright blonde, dyed blonde bob. She's in her 60s, she wears like lots of leather dresses and high heels. She's like just kind of her whole image and everything about her I'm obsessed with as well. But there was this bot where the whole point of it, one of her things that she says with some frequency is like, women in the workplace obviously struggle to get a fair wage. And by fair, I only mean compared to their male counterparts in that specific company. And so the bot was really funny. It was like, you put in what your job title was and where you live, and it would pull like the average for that profession and area. And then it would say like, what's the highest number you can say without laughing out loud? And so you like type in the number, and she's like, that's what you fucking ask for. And like, she does like all these kind of little things. And so anyways, I saw, she shared on her Twitter that she did a webinar, I think it was on Wednesday, I can't remember, but earlier in the week, for Neuhaus, which is like a, I don't really know much about Neuhaus, so I'll skip past that. But she was speaking to Jessica Barnett, who's the author of Feminist Fight Club and writes a lot for the New York Times. And they had a discussion. It was pretty much about like, it's a webinar discussion that I've seen happen a lot, how to stay creative in these times. But she was kind of giving it from her perspective, which I always so appreciate. And she was saying something that it reminded me of something you were saying earlier, George, where she was talking about, there were some questions that were coming in from the users as well. And people were saying, you know, like, well, I've lost my job, but how can I even approach companies during this time? Everyone is, you know, tightening their belts, and how do you approach the job hunt? And her whole thing too, and I think this is something that you talked about at length, George, but like, this is the time, like this is the ideal time for a lot of companies and a lot of people. None of the status quo is the norm anymore. If you can approach any company and say, this is how you should or can or will make money, they'll listen to you.
That's right.
And this whole kind of like, things can't be worse. And so now is the time to kind of rebuild and recreate. But so I participated in that. I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but it also kind of like switched something that I carried with me throughout the rest of the week. And there's kind of like a group, the Women of Sex Tech. It's a website. They do content, but it's also kind of like a community of people, and they're doing a virtual conference on May 2nd where Cindy Gallup will be the keynote. So I'm going to participate in that too. And that's actually also really cool. It's a virtual conference, but there's going to be talks about like reproductive rights and like compliance around, that's the thing. It's not just like porn. It's kind of like the ethics, representation, the compliance, the inclusivity behind it, how people and who are paid with it. But there's apparently going to be like a pole dancing like show as a part of it. So it's something totally different, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that was one of my favorite things of this past week, and something that I'm looking forward to. I guess it's next weekend already, May 2nd. But so those were my 3 things.
Wait, what was the third? It was Fiona Apple. What was this?
Exercise.
Oh, exercise was the first, right? Yeah.
And
those are awesome.
As a person.
Yeah, those are fantastic. My turn?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So the Bear app continues to just make my life easier. I'm really trying to kind of trim down like all of my tech tools and kind of ramp up my productivity, and they keep releasing new features that just I really love the way it's essentially just a note taking / writing app. Beautiful UX, but I keep discovering new things, like you can interlink between notes, which is really helpful to me. Like where on a note, I can then link to another. There's another app out there called Roam, which is trying to do that too, but I don't like the UX nearly as much. That's helpful. And then also, I'm deep down the rabbit hole on creating shortcuts, Apple shortcuts. So now I've made all these kind of Bear shortcuts. I made a pour over coffee shortcut too that I should put out there. I should make an app out of it. But the Bear app, I like it. It's a really nice writing experience, but it also can be kind of hacked to be a productivity tool. So you can add like into your share sheet and any of your apps, and then to a specific note. So now I have like a running little task list and just ideas that just go to this place, and then you can tag everything and interlink and filter. So I love the Bear. The second thing is so for forever, I've loved and used it as an example of kind of quality packaging and curation or whatever is the Criterion Collection. First obviously they started out as DVDs or whatever, and then they have the channel. And I've got a lot of their DVDs, and I've always loved the packaging and the way they present things, and just their picks, right? I mean, I think, and but so they offer a 14-day free trial. And the last thing I need is another subscription, but I signed up for it, and I'm really glad I did, because it's like, I mean, I know some of the movies and been deep down the Jim Jarmusch rabbit hole again, who I just love so much. And but now I just find myself like scrolling through and trying these, and they're all well picked and well curated, and it's very much kind of that nerd maven early adapter whatever. It's similar to like what it used to be, and to kind of go into a record store and just kind of like having that cool record store guy or girl or whatever be like, oh, you should check this out. They don't interlink well enough. Like I wish they would do more like, well, you're a big fan of Down by Law or whatever. Like you would probably like this other thing. But the cool thing is you kind of can't go wrong. Like it's just like throwing a dart, and they're all, so I was watching some Peter Falk and John Cassavetes thing last, and it's just, it's really, really well done. And then, third, I've been rereading Don't Take Your Life Personally, the kind of classic Buddhist book by Ajahn Sumedho. It just calms me the fuck down, right? Like struggling. I've been for decades now struggling Buddhist, but my favorite thing about kind of Buddhism generally is the forgiveness element, and just the continual just do your best, do your best, try to be the best George that you can be. That's all that anybody wants. That's all that anybody needs. And that's all you can do. Of course, that's the hardest thing in the world, and shedding off of all of the things that you're trying to, manipulate yourself to please other people and be something that someone else wants. And it goes back to the whole kind of, Fiona Apple, all those other things. It's just like the Fiona Apple that we all want is the most Fiona Apple, like without the filter. And that's all anyone as a human needs to be, is just to be the most them they can be. Hardest thing in the world. But so rereading those books just really helps, just kind of calm me, and so I always feel better when I'm reading those books. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's aggregate links to everything, and we'll put up some show notes.
I love it. The aggregation of the links shall begin. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. That's it. I guess we'll talk again tomorrow.
Oh, tonight.
Tonight. That's right. We got the all right. Talk to y'all soon.
All right. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Take care.